Here is another interesting interview question. Interviewer gives you a table and says, show current amount plus previous amount. Same row. And suddenly many candidates start thinking about self joins. But this question is actually testing whether you know how to work with window functions. So let's break it down slowly. First, let's look at the table. We have a table called transactions. Columns are ID, transaction date, and amount. And the data looks like this. Now, the requirement is simple. For each row, we want to show current amount plus the previous amount. So expected output would look like this, with columns like date, amount, and total. And the total is current amount plus previous amount. So the real question is, how do we access the previous row? That's the main challenge. Now let's see the common approach people try. Some candidates thinks, okay, I will join the table to itself. Something like current row joins previous row where ID equals to ID minus 1. But that approach quickly becomes messy. What if IDs are not continuous? What if we are ordering by date instead of ID? Now the join logic becomes complicated. So interviewer usually expect a cleaner solution. Instead of joining the table, we can simply look one row back, and window functions are built exactly for this kind of problem. The function we need is called lag. Lag lets us access a value from a previous row. No join required. So the query becomes something like this. Select transaction date, then amount plus lag amount over order by transaction date as total with previous from transactions. Now, when I run this, each row automatically gets the previous amount. For example, second row becomes 200 plus previous 100 equal to 300. Third row becomes 150 plus previous 200 equal to 350, and so on. Much cleaner than doing self join. Now notice something interesting. For the first row, there is no previous row. So lag returns null. That's expected. But sometimes interviewer may ask, what if we want to treat that null as 0? Then we can wrap it with ISNULL function. So the query becomes select transaction date, then amount plus ISNULL, and inside that lag amount over order by transaction date and 0 as total with previous from transactions. Now when I run this, first row becomes 100 plus 0 equal to 100, and the rest of rows work the same way. Now imagine interviewer adds another condition. They say like, do this calculation separately for each customer. In that case, we simply add partitioning. So calculation restarts for each customer group, and the query becomes select customer ID, transaction date, amount, then amount plus lag amount over partition by customer ID, order by transaction date as total with previous from transactions, and run. Now SQL looks at previous row within each customer only. So the logic restarts for every customer. One small practical thing. Window functions usually require sorting. So if the table is very large, having an index on transaction date can help. Or if we are partitioning by customer, then the index on customer ID and transaction date helps even more. So remember this idea. Whenever a question says previous row, next row, running comparison, don't think self-join first. Think window functions. They make these problems much easier.